Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us to this event. And I would like to introduce myself. I am Andrei Demit, and I'm going to present you an idea related to money and why, first of all, are we ready for a monetary revolution? And now we are going to see why do we have to think about money. So here we have, first of all, the COVID-19 created two crises, a social crisis and an economical crisis. The social crisis we all know because we are confined in places we cannot have so much social interaction as we had before. We cannot travel to the countries. There are a lot of restrictions, especially restaurants, hotels are suffering a lot because of this. And that translates to an economical crisis because given the fact that there is not enough, let's say, movement of people going in and out to travel, to go to restaurants, on vacation and so on, there is a shortage of money. And many small businesses are closing and they cannot continue, and that creates poverty. And that translates to the second part, which is why people are suffering, because many lost their jobs, because some companies, let's say, especially the ones working in the tourism area, restaurants, they are forced to leave people home, and this creates poverty because there is no more cash flow. And maybe you think, okay, why do we think now about money right now? We should think about how to create jobs. We should think about how to find a solution for the pandemic. And yes, I agree with all of you, but there is also, let's say, an opportunity for us because if we think about the history, during the Black Death pandemic, Florence in Italy managed to become the birthplace of Renaissance. And why does it happen? Because in a moment of crisis, we, people and society, is more prone to accept new ideas, some ideas that may seem crazy in a normal moment, some revolutionary ideas that can really change the way we live and change it for the better, of course. And that's why now, during this pandemic, where a lot of people are suffering, and not only people, businesses, we have also an opportunity to change the way we work, to see what's really stopping us from having a normal life, from economic development, even under these circumstances. And I will go a bit back to understand what is money, because that is the thing that it's stopping us from having a better life. That's what creates poverty. So money is a concept that's more than 2,300 years old, that Aristotle talked about this thing about what is money and what really means money. And money is what is the transactions between different goods and services. So money is not a good in itself. It's just a way to be able to exchange a good that you have with another one let's say in a standard way. So let's say that you are producing bread and you want to buy some fruits. Of course, you cannot exchange just bread for food. That's barter that was done before, but it's not convenient because maybe in that moment you don't want it. So you need a means of exchange for that. And now, just before going to the next section, I would like to remind you, because I forgot to tell you at the beginning, if you have any questions, please address them. Please write them in the Q&A section, and I will answer to you at the end of the slides. We'll have a Q&A section, a Q&A part. So going back to what's money. First of all, people had to solve, like, what was the fundamental need to ease the exchange of goods, because this is what creates wealth. This is what creates a society. Many people create different kinds of goods, and they want a simple way to exchange these goods. They want a way to be able to exchange the good that they have, and also be able to buy and acquire another good that they need. So the fundamental question was, the fundamental need was to ease the exchange of goods. And the best way to do it was to make them commensurable. Like if you have, I don't know, let's say you are an agriculture and you have a lot of corn and you want to buy a house. How much corn is equal to a house? You had to invent something to make them commensurable. And what's the best way to do that? With a currency. Therefore, the fundamental need and the fundamental end of a currency is to be a unit of account. Like this was measuring how many currencies is, let's say, a house, and how many currencies is 100 kilos, let's say, of corn. Then you would be able to exchange the corn for the currency and then be able to buy your house. So the function of the currencies became very natural because it was a unit of account as a measurement of value. So that was the first thing, because people wanted to know how much does a certain good costs, and also a medium of exchange, because it was easier to exchange the currencies instead of having to exchange the goods themselves. And also they were a store of value, because let's say that you had some goods that you wanted to sell, especially if you are selling food, which you cannot hold for a lot of time. Before you were, I say, limited to exchange it only while you had the food, and you couldn't store value because the food would have gone bad. But with the currency, you could sell the food, get the currency in exchange, and store the value of that in order for you to use it in a later period. Let's say usually people had the food in autumn, like I talking also about like during old times when people were mostly occupied with agriculture. So they harvested the food. Some of them, yes, it could be stored. Some of them, it couldn't be stored. But by selling them, they could actually store the value in the form of a currency, which they could later spend it. But what's the most important thing to achieve all those three functions of a currency? It's a social convention. Because without a social convention, we don't have any of it. If there is a community that, let's say, uses a specific kind of currency, and then you move and go to another community that uses different kind of currency, you actually cannot buy anything there because their social convention accepts only their type of currency. And this could create, and this is why we'll see there is a way to make a contract with between the communities. But in order for you to be able to have a currency with the three functions that we saw before, you need to have a social convention, an agreement between the people of a community that they will accept that for the goods. And now we're going to see that the currency, as we said, is only a medium of exchange. Indeed, it is valuable only if it allows us to obtain goods. It has no intrinsic value, because you may have, let's say, 1 million euros. And if you go to a place where they don't use this currency and they don't acknowledge it, you have no value. You cannot buy anything. Therefore, is not the one that issues the currency that gives the value to it. It has no value. But is the one who accepts the currency that gives value. It's the one that it's ready to give you something in exchange for that currency. That's the one that makes that currency valuable. It's not the issuer, it's the one who accepts it. And again, here, what's important about currencies is not the object that we decide to use as a currency, but the decision to use that object as a currency. And it's a very important difference. Now, when we think about, well, gold, silver, paper, and more recently bits, we think, okay, gold is valuable, silver or paper is valuable. No, it's the decision that's valuable. It's the decision that we took to use that object, that entity, as a currency. That's what is valuable. That's what is important. Is not the currency itself. Indeed, is the convention, the agreement that we reach between us to identify something as a unit of account and a mean of exchange, as we saw before, that goes into the functions of a currency. You can exchange it. It's a unit of account. And of course, you can also store the value of it. And that's all thanks to the agreement, to the convention that you had within your community. And when I say community, but we'll see that later become community much bigger, like the state. And in case of Europe, between more than one state. In the case of European Union, where euros can be used in many countries. And now I would like to give you a quote by Aristotle, where he wrote about money. And that's a very interesting thing, because let's read it. But money has become by convention a sort of representative of demand. And this is why it has the name money. Nomisma is in Greek for money, because it exists not by nature, but by law, nomos. Nomos is the Greek word for law, and it is in our power to change it and make it useless. If we think back about what was money, it was based on a convention, like we gave a value to the currency because we decided, we make an agreement. Therefore, the Greeks already knew that money is not something that it has value because in the nature it has value, like it's valuable by itself. It's value because the law decided it to be the law of people. We made it, we can change it, and we can make it also useless. For country like decides, like you cannot use some currency like state currency anymore, that will become useless if you have millions of it. So it's the law that gives the value to the currency, the agreement, the convention of the community, of the society. And the Greeks already knew that the money, that's why they called money nomisma, which is the Greek word for money, which comes from law. And now there are other kinds of money. Bank money. Maybe you heard about it, like maybe some of you knew about it, some maybe not. The bank money is a bit different from the state money, from the currency money. First of all, let's start with a bit of history about it. It has its origin in the Bank of Amsterdam from 1609, when Amsterdam was the largest and the most prosperous city in Europe. How were they functioning this? People actually were allowed to bring gold, silver, other, let's say, commodities to the bank for storage. Let's say that a person had to travel from Amsterdam, it had to go to Paris, and he couldn't bring with him all the gold that it had because it was very hard to actually transport it. So they put it in a bank, and the bank wrote them a note which stated that this person has a certain value of gold in that bank. And later, he can go back to the bank and reclaim it. But he ended up just with a piece of paper, a note. It's a note from the bank. And people saw that it's quite efficient, much more efficient to just carry the bank note instead of the gold itself. And that note, for many reasons. For example, you could, while traveling, and if you had a lot of gold with you, you could be exposed to a lot of dangers, like thieves that would steal the gold from you, and it was very hard. You had to have a lot of people with you to carry the gold and so on. But if you just have a piece of paper, and of course you have a copy in the bank, you don't fear about having it taken away from you. Well, unless they go to the bank and rob the bank. But otherwise, you would feel more safe. It would have been more easy for you to transport it. And when you had to make a purchase in Paris, let's say, you want to make a purchase in Paris, you could just tell the other party that, okay, you have this banknote, you assign to him a certain part of that money, and whenever he wants, he can go to the bank to reclaim it. And people started to use this more and more because it became more efficient. And the bank, given the fact that they were having more and more deposits of commodities, of gold, of silver, and all kinds of goods from other people, they started to lend the money to someone else as banknotes, but of course with like they started to give credit. Okay, I will lend you some money. Of course, you will have to give them back to me with a certain interest rate. And at the beginning, they started to give the money that they had in the bank. Like they weren't allowed to give more than 7 times what they had in the bank as deposit. However, today's bank don't require to have some commodity backing up its money, and actually it can create money from thin air, literally. When you go to make a credit to the bank, now it's digital. Most of it, like you don't receive any banknote. You just open an account in the bank, and they will give you a credit of, I don't know, 100,000 euros. And with that, you can buy, I don't know, an apartment, and then you have to pay it back to the bank. But the bank at the beginning didn't have this. If before the bank had to have a deposit, which was followed by a credit, now it's on the other side, like there is a credit followed by the deposit of the people that are paying back to the bank the money that they lended to it. So what's bank money is also called demand deposit or non-confidential money, and are the result of accounting records in bank databases, bank transfer, cashier checks, credit card, debit card, all this money doesn't have fiat money backing it. And indeed, it doesn't involve transfer of state currency because there's no deposit of it to begin with. Like I told you, like they create the money, but they don't have something backing up it. And there are also central banks that can print the money. They don't need to have, let's say, the commodity backing up, like the gold reserve behind it to back up. And for example, in Europe, there is a Target 2, like Trans-European Automated Real-Time Gross Settlement Express Transfer System. Yeah, it's a very big name. But what's doing this? Actually settles payment related to the Euro system's monetary policy operations, and as well as bank-to-bank and commercial transactions. For example, let's say that from Germany, you want to send money to a bank in Italy. And this all goes through this system, which is named Target 2 in Europe. And after telling you about this, about the bank money and how do they work, I would like to present you something new. Well, it's not new. It's a concept that it's quite old, but maybe some of you heard about it, maybe not. There is the complementary currencies. What's that? Okay, you will say, what's the complementary currencies? Well, if we're going to think about the formal definition of it, it's a currency that is not legal tender and is based on an agreement between parties exchanging the currency. Okay, what's legal tender? Legal tender is a currency that is backed by the government, like you are forced to accept a debt payment or a payment for a good in that kind of money. For example, if you have a debt in euros, okay, you are forced to pay in euros, and the person that receives the money from you, it's forced to accept the euros. He cannot say, no, you cannot pay my debt in euros. And that's a legal tender. Instead, the complementary currencies is not, there's not this obligation. Like if the person doesn't want to get that currency, that complementary currency for you, there's no legal action that can be taken to him. Like it's just an agreement. If he wants to take it, he can take it. Otherwise, there is no obligation for him to accept that. And to make it more easier to understand what are complementary currencies, we can think about, let's say, the miles that you have on your card, on your flying card. Let's say you are you are flying with, you're doing a lot of flights, and for each flight that you make, you get some miles. With that miles, when you reach a certain amount of it, like 1,000, 2,000 miles, you can actually purchase a flight using that kind of credit, let's say, that kind of that miles. And miles are a complementary currencies. Like you receive the good, but you don't have to pay euros, for example, or you can pay only 50% in euros and the 50% with that other currency, which are the miles. Other simple example is, let's say you are making, like you're shopping in a supermarket. A lot of times you have a fidelity card, and when every time you buy, you pass that card and you get some points. At a certain point in time, when you receive enough points, like you can go to that market and buy goods or get a discount, like the discounted part is paid with that points. And that points are representing also a complementary currency. So that's what complementary currency means in its most simplest way, let's say, not thinking about the legal implication and so on. We already use them, but they are not advertised, I could say. So they are living in a parallel with the state currency, with the euro, dollar, leu in Romania, and so on. Yeah, so maybe you say, what's the purpose of complementary currencies? Why do we have to have this? What's the reason behind them? Well, first of all, the complementary currencies have a mission, like they want to protect and stimulate the economy. They help micro, small, and medium enterprise development. They have the mission, let's say, to activate the local market. They encourage the use of underused resources. They also help reduce the carbon emission, because encouraging localization of trade and relationships, you actually get to have more exchanges and more transactions in your local communities. That will help build the community, which is much more resilient from economical point of view. And also increases cooperation, because if you have a community which is more tied together, you can find new relationships, new cooperation that can help the local communities and also the people in the local communities grow and flourish. And now we see what are the benefits for businesses, like small, medium businesses, even big ones, of course. But the ones that benefit the most are the small ones, because they don't have a lot of cash flows. They are the ones that don't have enough money. There is the endless problem, like we don't have enough money for that, we don't have enough money to employ another person, and so on. Well, the benefit for local businesses is one that they use less of the state currency, they improve the profits, enhance balance sheet, and enhance cash flow, and they receive more customers and grow in the market share. Why? Because by offering a product with a discount value, like a discount value in state currency, people are going to buy it more, because it will cost them less state money, let's say. And the other part will be paid in local currency, which they are receiving it for doing other, like for selling their services. And we will see later, there is another stream of income of these complementary currencies, which can really change the way we think about money. And the benefits for the individuals is that ensures the money circulate locally, going to local people. It builds community spirit. It supports and it makes the trust, makes the local community build more trust, build more support around it. And it's also fully inclusive and allows people that before maybe couldn't join in developing local communities because they didn't have state money, which is often scarce, and that could help them increase the economic, let's say, it could help them increase the local economy and the local purchasing power of people. And we are going to see now some examples. Like I told you, it's not a new idea. It's an idea that have been already used in many places in a very successful way. And one of the most successful one is in Switzerland. And now we're going to see, which is the WIR Bank. WIR Bank, WIR stands for we, and this was created in 1934 in Zurich by a small number of entrepreneurs to overcome the crisis in between the two wars, like the crisis of 1929. Actually, the WIR uses a combination with the Swiss franc in transaction involving two currencies, and it serves as a way to help small, medium enterprises which are from different kind of let's say areas like hospitality, construction, manufacturing, retail, and professional services. And why does it have been created? Well, to offer stability, especially in time of crisis, and the possibility to use their own currencies when there is low liquidity. And they actually did this because those entrepreneurs, after this crisis, actually had all their income wiped out. Like they had a lot of money. They believed, okay, we have the money, but in a very short amount of time, they left with nothing. And they couldn't do anything about it, but it was not depending on them. It was not depending on their local community. It was something external. So that's why they created something locally to offer more resilience to external events, and when the cash flow of state currency is very low. And now, today, there are 62,000 businesses in Switzerland which are using this WIR currency, and that accounts for 2% of the Swiss gross domestic product in WIR. But of course, maybe you think, okay, Switzerland, it's a very developed country, and there have always been like more advanced, and it's very hard to make it in other countries. Well, actually, there are a lot of complementary currencies used in different countries, and I gathered 8 of them. And I'm gonna make a quick overview. I will stop on one of them, which I believe has very important concept behind it. And first of all, each complementary currency doesn't have to be like, it's not universal. Each local community have different needs, and the complementary currencies was built to address the need of the community. Like it doesn't have to be the same everywhere. For example, like Euro Bexb, it's a complementary currency used in Italy since 2001. And actually it's an Italian model of the Switzerland WIR. It helps businesses save liquidity, financing costs while increasing sales, and actually copies the business model of like the way the WIR works. There is Sardex used in Sardinia, and this complementary currency is used only for mutual credit and businesses and people. Like it's not a currency that people can use, but it's only for the businesses and small businesses and so on, to help them collaborate and to help them create a more resilient economic community of businesses. Then there is the Calgary dollar in Alberta in Canada since 1995, intended for community and economic development, building local resiliency. There is Ora in South Africa, and this one was a currency as a part of self-determination, and each node advertises a local businesses. There's the Brixton pound, and their goal was to tie local shoppers to local shops, which are encouraged to source goods and services locally. Then there is, I will come back to Kemagor, and there is Berkshire. Actually, residents purchase Berkshire at 95 USD cents from local participating banks and businesses that accept Berkshires, and they get the full value dollar when they want to buy something. Czech is a local currency born in 2007 in Italy and stands for Solidarietà che cammina, which is translated like solidarity that walks in Italy. And members of this currency had a discount applied from 5% to 30%, and that's a way to stimulate the exchange and the businesses, local, especially small businesses in Italy. And now I'm going to Kemagor, which started as a regional local currency in Bavaria in 2003. It was used to increase local employment, to make the local food supply more resilient, support local culture. And one very interesting thing is that it uses demurrage. What's demurrage? Demurrage is a concept where that taxes you for holding back the money. Like if you have 1 million, let's say, and you hoard more, like 10 million, billion, and billions and billions, you actually get taxed for holding back the money, and you are encouraged to invest it, to let it go, to make it flow, because the money is potential of exchange of goods of value, which is blocked. It has to be released. In that case, if you use the money, you don't get taxed, and the economy and the flow of money is continuous and the economy is moving. But if you're hoarding the money, if you're blocking, let's say, the flow of money, you like a block of the flow in the economy, and that will tax you, will make you lose the money in the end if you don't use it. So you can have a part of money, of course, for what you need, but you cannot accumulate indefinitely, because that's not the way money should work, and money was created for. It was created, and also we had to know that it's not the money that creates the value, the exchanges. Is the exchange of goods, the exchange between people, the transactions that create the money. So if you don't let the people do this, don't let the cash flow, you're blocking the economy. And it uses demurrage. That's a very interesting concept that could be used to make that simple concept could change the way the economy works today. And now we are going to see what's the universal basic income. Well, universal basic income, it's a flat monthly payment that usually, like, the government gives to its citizens, regardless of whether the citizen works or not. It was intended to help people that have no work, have no job, live, have a life above the poverty line. And that's enough money to cover the basic cost of living and financial security. And of course, it was proposed in the beginning as to address the job losses stemming from technological innovation. And many countries, states, cities, and one of it, like 2 years ago in Italy, it was introduced for people that don't have like a job. They receive like 800 euros per month to help them cope with this, and of course they are encouraged to find a job. But if they are left without job, they won't, let's say, be left without food and without shelter. So that's a thing that helps people have a financial security. Of course, there's a drawback because some people are take advantage of this because they don't want to go to work, and they are living off just of this basic income. However, it doesn't have to be this way, because there are other ways we can actually make it, how can I say, we can stimulate them to go to work, but also have that financial security. And now I want to present you like a solution where we use the complementary currency and the universal basic income to address these, let's say, to address, first of all, the lack of money, like I told you before, to have the benefits of a complementary currency that makes the local community more resilient, that improves the cash flow in local areas, and the universal basic income that provides for people that provides people with a financial stability. And in this case, the universal basic income shouldn't be like 800 euros or something like that. It should be like 15% of the average salary. That will actually give and it will be monthly, of course, and that will give people enough money to stimulate the local businesses. It will encourage them to use the money locally, and of course it wouldn't be enough, let's say, to live just based on that, and we will stimulate them also to look for a job. And local businesses will be able to use the complementary currency to pay, like in Bavaria, like was made in Germany, to pay part of the salary in these complementary currencies, so that it is a win-win situation for both the people and the businesses. And now let's go. We have reached the technology and money. What's technology? Why we say about this? Because now we can really create a platform and we have all the technology needed to build this. We can, especially now that we have to use less and less physical currencies, we have to build something virtual to pay without phones, without, I don't know, smartwatches and so on, or online. And we can create a complementary currencies, which is fully virtual. And given the fact that I'm a .NET developer, I'm this ecosystem of Azure.NET, and I know this technology, I believe that we have in this ecosystem with Azure Blockchain, that it's a fully managed ledger service that enables the users with the ability to grow and operate blockchain networks at scale in Azure. And blockchain doesn't have to be only Bitcoin. Like blockchain, is the technology behind it, and it can be used to build a ledger behind, for example, for complementary currencies. We have .NET Core, we have C#, which is I believe it's an universal language. We can build anything with it. And now is the time to really build something and create a better future for us and for our local communities. Therefore, we have all the knowledge and the tools to create like a living economy designed to encourage life to flourish, societies to develop and be ecologically sustainable. And, you know, like societies will be developed if there will be more exchanges in it. Life will flourish because people will worry less about the money, and will be ecologically sustainable because there won't be need of big transports. I don't know, if you want to buy something, you can go to a local business that creates that thing for you. You don't have to buy it from another continent. And that's more ecologically sustainable. There will be less CO2 emissions. And now I reach the Q&A section. If you have any questions, feel free to ask for it, and I will wait for minutes. If there are questions for you, you can write them in the Q&A in this. If there are any question. There is something that was, maybe it's not clear, maybe you want to understand better. Now's the time to ask. Okay, so like I told you before, well, okay, thank you. Pretty clear, thanks. Yes, so if you have any other questions, you can write me. You can find with my name on various social platforms. And now I would like to tell you one last thing. Like, I believe it's time to embrace a new way of thinking in the monetary domain. And that's what can really change, and all of us have the power to do something. It's not that only a bank, only it's an idea that we can start thinking about it and start implementing it in our local communities, especially in this time of crisis. We can try and we can really build something better. And as you can see, there are a lot of examples that we can take, let's say, take inspiration from. And of course, we have the technology to do it. We have the knowledge to do it. It's just that we miss the action. So I encourage you all to take action and create a better future for all of us. Thank you.